Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Sins and Suffers podcast. I am your host, Stanley, and today we are going to be getting into the brain, back into the cerebral cortex, way back there. My guest today is Devin, Dabney, Kris Hampton, and yours truly, the Power Squad, all getting together, and the original members of Plug Tone Audio. And if you guys don't know what that is, keep your ears tuned. Check us out on Instagram because a lot of stuff is about to be dropping down coming up in this next year. Today we're talking about the creative process and how we actually have to unplug so we can plug in and give you guys the stuff that you enjoy and you like to hear from us. This conversation is not going to be the most moving rock climbing conversation. It's not going to be this soul-searching racial justice conversation. Today it really is three guys talking about how we have to step back so we can step in and do the things that we love. Whether you listen to it or not, we would still be doing it. I'm really excited for this episode, and I'm really excited to bring this content to you. And hopefully, I want to first thank the Sticker Club members, and I want to thank you guys so much for supporting this podcast. Every contribution of $5 a month goes a long way to make all the content that we bring to you, we mail to you, happen. So, once again, thank you guys so much. And if you don't already sponsor the podcast, you can do that simply by going to sensandsuffers.com or going to our Patreon. And you get cool opportunities to win stuff from organic climbing, tension climbing, Beyond Clothing, our sponsors. Every month, we're going to be giving something out, along with mailing you stickers, love letters. So, if you aren't already doing it, please start sponsoring Sins and Suffers so we can keep bringing you amazing content like this. And don't forget to support Kris and Devin in their own endeavors. All right, let's get into this.
You have a really good voice, by the way, Mario. I don't know if I've ever told you that.
I mean, how come I whisper to you in your pillow all night?
Don't make promises you can't keep, brother.
Oh, baby, if you got spirit, I'll be there next flight.
I think you're still a little hot, Mario. It's just right. Showing up waveforms.
Oh yeah, I see it peeking. I can see it peeking. I'm gonna back off just a little bit.
Maybe I could stand to turn down as well.
All right.
Take the bass line out.
1, 2.
Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2.
I think
when you do Jay-Z, do you talk like from the bottom of your throat?
Yeah, it's like you have to like shut off some of your vocal cords.
Yeah,
it's like back here. Like you can't see me pointing if you're listening, but it's like right where like behind your jugulars.
Yeah. That's what it feels like. I can't do it, but when I try, that's what it feels like.
You know what I really want to get is his laugh. His like, like the. I can't quite get it yet, but I'm working on it.
I don't think I can even remember what that sounds like. I have to think about that.
I'm pretty close, honestly. It's not that far off.
I love when I hear a good Jay-Z impression.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't hear his voice a lot of the time, but when I hear the impression, I'm like, oh wow, that was amazing.
Well, the thing is like, and this is probably a testament to how good of a rapper he is his voice is like very easy, relatively easy to impersonate because it's so distinct. You know, like you know someone's trying to impersonate Jay-Z. Like think about how many black comedians can impersonate Jay-Z.
Right.
It's because no one sounds like Jay-Z, you know, like, I mean, except that one rapper, I think NOE, he sounds like Jay-Z, but that's all people would say is like, you sound like Jay-Z, you know?
Mm-hmm. Like, it's similar with Ghostface. Like, Action Bronson will always sound like Ghostface.
Wow.
Oh, man, that's so true. Holy shit.
Say that. I didn't even think about that.
I did not think about that either. Wow.
I can't even picture Action Bronson when I'm listening to Action Bronson. All I can see in my head is Ghostface.
Damn.
I guess, do you think that they rap similarly? I never would have.
I don't think so.
Really.
Yeah, because I think that's why I never. Yeah, no, the voice for sure. I mean, like, with NOE, like, he even raps like Jay-Z. Like, he uses the same sort of, like, structure and, like, delivery. But, yeah, I never, like, Action Bronson and Ghostface I don't think they rap the same at all. But that's so funny. Yeah,
Similar beats, though.
Yeah, like that.
That's what threw me off at first. When I first heard Action Bronson, I was like, when's Action Bronson come in? This Ghostface.
Yeah, Ghostface got a new style. Okay. He entered the 37th chamber.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
How was you guys' 4th?
Man, I went climbing in the morning, and then I just worked the rest of the day.
Yeah, gosh, what did I do? I grilled in the morning for sure. Got my drink on, and then I wrote the rest of the evening. So similar, just with some drink mixed in.
How was the hanging out with super southern white Texans?
Yeah, I want to hear about this.
It was fun, actually. I did not participate in the watermelon eating contest, the pie eating contest. Did participate in the ice cream contest, $2. And then you would taste all the scoops that all the ladies make in town. So I definitely, so it was interesting. So I kind of giving you guys some context, like after getting stuck there and like contacting Border Patrol and eventually digging out the truck the last time. So like the town knew who I was. It's not there's obviously like 200 people there, so it's not very big. And so when I showed up, I actually I was so surprised. I saw another brother there, and he actually happened to be a Jamaican, and I was like, oh, this is a sign. And he was dating a girl from there, and then they kind of took me underneath their wing and introduced me to a bunch of other people in the town, but a bunch of the people knew who I was, and it was cool. I mean, the dance was fun. The fireworks were fun. I just kind of hung out. I met Miss West Texas.
Nice.
And then I met the mayor, the judge, Chamber of Commerce. So it was good. It was, they like to drink, they like to party, but there is definitely a window when you know it is time for you to go home because, I definitely started hearing some people get ornery. I started hearing backstories, and in a small town like that, the backstories get real deep, real deep. But it was good. So I did that. So I hung out there for 4th of July, hung out in a motel. Then I drove down to this place up in Bolting. And so I sunk in 4 new routes. And then basically after all that, I went to San Antonio and climbed at 2 gyms there. And doing this, started a project for Kaya and Gym Climber. And then I literally spent the night at my friend's house, woke up at 4, and drove straight to the rock climbing gym to start coaching. Like I got there on time, walked in like 5 minutes, started coaching, and then I just got off work.
Yeah. Busy.
Rockstar life,
Dude, rock stars don't sleep. I mean, I do sleep a lot. I do sleep a lot.
Well, I think that's kind of the perfect lead-in story for you, Mario. When you first pitched this idea to me when we were in Salt Lake, I thought this could be such a fascinating conversation about hustling versus recharging. And there's some hate on the hustle culture these days, and warranted, but then there's also some really great things about it. So
what is the hate on the hustle culture? I mean,
I see a lot of people like just hating on the idea of hustling because it's the internet, right? The internet is polar opposites. It's black and white. There's no gray area. So either you hustle all day every day, or you don't hustle and you only rest. There's no gray area on the fucking internet.
But I mean, but that's the beauty of hustling. Like I was literally just talking to someone about this, and they're like, when do you ever sleep? When do you ever stop? They're like, you sound like a machine. You just like go. And I think that's the beauty of it is it's like, this is like why you get to recharge. Like you're on, but when you're off, the whole system is shut down. You unplug the T5 cable from the internet, like you're fully offline. and you're like down. And I think the problem is most people, and I would actually encourage people who are listening to this, maybe you should hustle for your own personal mental health and really just like get on the grind and be productive, and then just walk away. Like just walk away from the whole internet, turn off your phone. I mean, you know, God forbid you should turn it off and hide it from yourself for a little while and just exist like we did for millennia. And I think, I don't know, I get a lot of peace from it. I get a tremendous amount of peace from going real hard in the grind and then stepping away from it. And I usually find, and for me, it's usually like a 48-hour window if I don't have to work. But if it's a 48-hour window, because it takes the first 12 hours for my brain just to calm down of writing and getting everything out. And then after that, it's like, it goes 12 out. The first 12 hours is getting all the ideas out. The next, this time kind of wavers, but it's like this rush of emotion where I can just kind of like, I mean, sometimes I cry, sometimes I'm just like sitting here, but like, it's this weird rush of like, at first it's anxiety, but then it subsides. And then you have to actually deal with the feelings that you feel. And then later on to that, then you kind of get into this peace. And if you've ever kind of taken like, this is real hippie shit I'm about to say, but I'm like really into it. If you've ever taken those like float baths where you like you sink in like you lay in salt, like the Dead Sea, and you just float, that shit is like, I think it's hot. I love it. I love it so much because you lose all your sensories. You can't feel the water. You can't feel anything. So you're like really just left like in your brain. And I think it's so cool because you can do that on your own. But then at that point, at the end of it, you really are left with the man in the mirror, and it's you. Like, I mean, you are who you are, and you have to deal with that. And I think that most people want to keep their phone on, keep some connection to the internet, and they just don't want to go that deep. You just don't want to go that far. Because if you go that far, then you have to actually deal with who you are.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to say something to your earlier point about like why there's so much negativity around hustle culture. I think some of it too is also the capitalist culture of like feeling like you have to make money all the time and that your value is in money. And I mean, honestly, I still struggle a lot with this because I don't really care about making money. I guess I always think of the Kanye West line of like having money's not everything, not having it is, where like in a perfect world, I don't care about money. And if I didn't have to make money, I would still hustle, if that makes sense. I think you two would agree with that, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You would still find things to do. You would still like be mobile, going everywhere, doing everything. But I think when you introduce money, like making money into it, that's where people start to go, well, are you just doing this because our culture as America says you need to be productive, you need to be rich in order to be valuable, like, and I don't know, I struggle with that, but I also, like I said, I don't think it has to do with money for us, at least. I mean, I think for me, it's more about freedom and like being able to do the stuff I want to do. And I mean, Kris, we were talking before Mario got on, but like, this is just like who we are. Like it has nothing to do with being productive in a capitalist sense. It's more just like, we like ideas, we like projects, we like making an impact. I'm kind of speaking for both of you, but I think you would agree that like it's not really about being wealthy. It's just about like chasing ideas and chasing creativity and yeah, like Mario said, like searching and like finding yourself, you know, being comfortable with who you are.
Totally. And you know, what's interesting to me hearing the two of you juxtaposed just talking then is like all of this depends on the context in which other people see it when it comes to social media. Like you and I aren't making the things we make because we want to make money, but the people seeing it on Instagram don't know that.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mario takes these rests, but one of the key factors in him resting is being off of social media. So people don't see that either.
Yeah.
So it ends up looking like, if you're looking at it through this like social media lens of I don't really know any of you, it looks like it's this constant machine-like making things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's true.
So I can see where it gets tricky.
That's interesting you say that, because I've never really looked at it from that perspective. Like, I've never looked at it from the consumer perspective of like what we create and what we do, because I guess it does look like all of a sudden it's like, what is that? I don't remember who said this line, but I mean, I'm sure a billion people have said it, but like back in the lab again. And it's like, it looks like we're just like producing a bunch of stuff, go back in the lab, produce a bunch of stuff, back in the lab. But I think that what people, as you elegantly stated, it's like, no, we're not actually doing anything. But the perception that you see is that we are back in the lab and we are constantly producing this machine. And I'm like, I've definitely apologized to my own listener base that, like, you know, I definitely go straight ghost sometimes. And I like, it's just because I have to step back. And I am also horribly, horribly, horribly paranoid of being how do you say this? Authentic, being unauthentic. I'm like horribly paranoid of it. Sure. And so it's like, and I've had this conversation with both of you guys. Like, you know, I get a lot of comments like, man, you should put out more of your like little solo tracks and things like that. And you should do that more often. But I'm also at the same time, I'm not trying to be that resound like, oh, what is that Wu-Tang song where he's like, the dumb are caught by the resound of the drum. And I'm not just trying to drum this thing and just like I don't want you to be just caught by the heavy bass line. Like, I want you to hear the lyrics. I want you to hear the chords. I want you to hear the intricacy in what I'm trying to say. And I want to deliver that in a bite size. I want to deliver in like you go get a slider at a restaurant, like little bite-sized chunks where you can kind of actually work at it. Yeah, and I don't know. I think it just hit me real hard that what you just said, like, people do have the perception, or people may have the perception that, like, we're constantly putting stuff out. And I don't know, like, as I said earlier, the most important part of my process is the unplug, because if I don't do it, I get sloppy real fast, and it's really obvious to see. Like, you'll see me start.
How often do you do that? How often do you unplug that way?
It used, when I was just focusing on the podcast during quarantine, it was actually a lot easier because I was just doing Gear Closet, just doing podcasts, and I wasn't really doing anything else, and so it would really be like 2 weeks on, a week and a half off. And the reason why it was a week and a half is that bottom part of the week, or I'd either buffer it in the front or the back. That's when I would like storyboard or moonboard, and like you guys can't see it, but I have this massive dry erase board in my room here, and it basically has all the list of guests that are coming out and all the concept and ideas and videos that I want to write, and then the next whiteboard next to it is basically a mood board of like just like links or websites or things to go to, so I can go look at images that will spark. And so what I'll do is I'll fill that mood board up, and then I just like walk away from it. And then that's when the unplug happens. And I'm not allowed to go on the internet at all, personally, for myself, because the purpose of looking at this mood board is I have, in my mind, it's like I have consumed enough content in my short lifetime where all of this imagery is there. All these words are there. All this literature is there. Before I go consuming more content, and before I go consuming more things that are going to really like help me do that, I need to make sure that I'm actually like taking out the shovel and digging up some coffins, and like really coming up, really digging in me and making sure that like, okay, this is what I've got. This is what I think. And then what I find is when it's time to come back, and you know, I guess to a certain extent, I don't fully unplug from myself, but I just unplug from the internet. But then I'll write like, okay, like like prime example, I told you guys about the bus stop that I'm working on.
Yeah.
One of the things I was listening to the audio about it, and one of the things I was like, need to find sound of hummingbird, mockingbirds, and starlings, because those are very prominent to Dallas, and mockingbirds are very prominent across the country. And I just like the sound of the hummingbird, because I want to have this scene where like a hummingbird just comes by, and I want to hear it go from left to right in the microphone. And I think it's cool, but that never came to mind until I just played the audio off of the Zencaster. Off of the Zoom unit, and I just listened to it, and I was walking around just listening to it, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to get. And then later on, I will then kind of unpack. And so once I have the list, then I kind of go back onto the internet and start pulling it out. But I think too many times, like you don't always have to clean your plate. Like your plate doesn't have to be empty. You can put it in a doggy bag and then take it home with you. And I think that a lot of people just assume, well, I don't know, I'm not going to say this, that a lot of people assume. I'll speak for myself on this one, but like, I just don't want to be trying to clean my plate all the time. I have enough. I'm full. I'm satisfied. I have the resources. I just need to learn how to draw it out of myself more often than not. And that's what I honestly struggle with the most, because that's where I get like super self-critical. And I think it's stupid. But then it usually turns out to not be a bad idea. That's the process. That's like my creative like strategy of how I actually like approach an idea. There's a few other things that I do to kind of like decide which idea, but the bulk of the actual creative process, that's like how I decide, okay, the next thing that's going to happen, that's once all these other little tests happen, this is, okay, we're doing this thing. This is the creative process that helps break it down. And so
that's cool.
I have to be unplugged.
I like that you have that. Yeah, I like that you have that process, and that you go a little analog, you know, when you're working through it. I do a similar thing. I've got notebooks everywhere. You know, I have a hard time creating in a digital way. So like even the little charts that I draw that I put on Instagram, I draw those first in a notebook and sketch them out, you know, 8 or 10 times. Just when I'm like zoning out, I just start sketching things, and that eventually becomes a chart sometime down the road, you know. I like that you go analog.
You have to. I think you have to, because there's too much noise. I mean, think of an old school walkie-talkie. There's so much noise until you get on the walkie-talkie at night. And then it's less, but there's so much noise all the time. And I can't cut through it on my own. I have to like just cut the cord.
Yeah. That's so interesting. You guys are like giving me advice. Like, I'm like, well, cause like I used to create in notebooks, you know, like when I was younger, you know, even like rapping, I would only write in a notebook, you know, or I would only draw on paper. But then once I had like a computer and I could type, I was like, well, typing's faster. I'd rather type. And now like, I like almost never write things in a notebook. Well, I've got like a bunch of notes on my phone, you know, like the Notes app. Like that's where I put like if I think of something, like if I don't write it down, like it's going to consume my thoughts. So I have to write things down. But yeah, I think that going back to the literal drawing board, and I love that mood board idea, by the way. That's like something we would do in design school. To like when you're like working on a project or like a visual design, it's like, well, what sort of like textures or songs or whatever it is, you just put it all out on the thing. I love that. Yeah, I wonder if doing that for myself would help me feel a little less frantic, because right now I think like, you know, comparing what you said to how I feel like I'm an operator at a switchboard, and like all I do is like take the plugs and put them in different switchboards, but I'm never like completely off. Like it's always like, you know, okay, take it out of the podcast switchboard and put it into the writing switchboard, and then the hip hop switchboard. And then, you know, 3 months ago that switchboard short circuited and then I couldn't do anything.
Right.
So I'm like, I feel like I'm the one in this conversation that's like listening to you two, and I'm like, how can I like change my process to be better? Because I think I told you, I know I told you, and I might have told Mario this, but coming back from climbing and everything, I was like, something has to change. Like I because I'm not going to stop being this level of productive, because this is just who I am, and right. It's not influenced by anything but just like being creative and loving all sorts of ideas and having all sorts of skills that I like to use. So if I'm not going to become less prolific, then I need to become more intentional and better at like turning things off. I think that's what I got out of that. Like what Mario is saying is he's very intentional. Like he's like, it's either 100, like I'm on, or like if I am off, I am off, like OFF off, you know? Yeah. And it's just that, like, I'm not going to like half rest, half work idea, you know?
Yeah. I really love what you just said about if I can't be more prolific, I need to be more intentional.
Yeah.
That's fucking brilliant. My process is a little bit different and probably not optimized. Like I want to pull some from Mario's process into mine. I want to learn some of that completely downtime. I am with completely downtime. I feel far more anxious than when I'm still on a little bit. And my a little bit is probably a lot for some people.
Yeah, it's relative.
But I have recognized over the years that there are parts of what I do that allow me to recharge. And then I've turned them into things that look like productivity, like all those charts that I've been putting up on Instagram. I feel like I'm in total downtime when I'm drawing those things, when I'm sketching them. And, you know, I feel like I'm in total downtime when I go climbing. Even though I can set my phone up and record it and then a few weeks or a few months down the road, turn it into an educational video. You know, so I've found these ways, and maybe this is just me finding a way to like a shortcut to my I need to be productive neuroses, you know, rather than actually finding a way to rest.
Yeah.
But right now, those are things that recharge me. So I make sure to have those things in. I also love just coming up with ideas, just dreaming up ideas. And that can be a problem because, you know, like Devin, I know when you're feeling a little underwater and I'm like, oh, I have this idea, Devin and I could do this, and then I send it to you and then I'm like, shit, I shouldn't have sent that. He's busy already.
I know. I don't know if it's not your fault. Like, it's like I want those things, but yeah, like I'm definitely someone that like, I'm always, and I'm trying to be better at this, but I'm always operating at like 102%. Like I'm always giving a little bit more than I technically can. And then, so when when a friend brings me an idea, that's what, like, to me, it's like, oh my God, I'm already like barely holding it overloading. Together. Yeah. But that's a me problem. I need to learn how to operate at like 98% so that when you tell, cause yeah, I want you to give like that. It's like a contradictory thing. Like I want the ideas are what keep me going, but I just need to not always be at max capacity. And that makes me like want to ask you, like, you just said that you're able to do things that are in some way productive, but also seem to give you something back. This is for both of you. Like what, how do you do that? Like, how do you get it back? Like, I don't know how to, I don't have things that I do that actually, or at least I don't feel like I have things I do that give me energy, except like talking to my friends, you know, but like, I don't like climbing is like, it can be a drain, but it also can give me energy. You know, music can be a drain, but it can also but nothing is like, yeah, that for sure. Like, what am I missing? Am I missing something?
You know, I think, to be perfectly honest, I think I had a long string of privileges that I was able to capitalize on. Like, I mean, I check all of the privilege boxes, you know, for the most part, other than like having rich white parents. But I'm a white male in this society, so I've had a bunch of privilege to be able to capitalize on, and I've been able to set myself up in a life where it's all built around things that I love. Mm-hmm. You know, wasn't always that way, but it is now. So like, where climbing for me is recharging, for you, it's a much bigger ordeal to go climbing.
That's fair.
Like you were just out here and you saw how I operate. It's like, oh, let's get up, let's eat breakfast, you know. Whatever time we feel like, let's just roll out to the boulders.
Like, wait a minute, what? I thought. And
then,
sorry, go ahead.
You know, so it's just a casual thing because there are boulders 15 minutes away. You know, or I can walk out to my garage and climb the gym.
Oh my God.
You know? So for me, it's the only reason that's recharging for me is because it's so easy for me to go do. Wasn't always that way. It used to be a struggle to go to the gym, you know, and I have to force myself to do it. So I've been able to set myself up for that. So certainly don't, you know, say, oh, I need to be able to take these things that Kris does and make them recharge for me. Right. You obviously have to find those things. What about video games for you?
Oh, yeah, I love video games, I think for me is what Mario is to turning off to Mario. Like, where when I play video games, like, my brain is like not, it's really weird. It's kind of hard to explain, but when I'm playing video games, my brain's not working. Like, I'm totally reacting off of like reflex. You know what I mean? And a lot of the games that I play, you know, like Doom, you know, like that is a pretty, once you like have once you know how to play like a first person shooter game, Doom is all just like reflexes, you know, or like Smash Bros, for example. Like, it's a competitive game, but it's mostly like reflex and like, you know, there's a little bit of like reading the other person, but for the most part, like, I'm not thinking when I play those games. So that's like,
interesting. Quick aside here, you know, I've been listening to people like Brandon Belcher and Nate and yourself and Mario and something that never occurred to me years ago, but that is prominent in my brain now, is that I'm a white guy, so if I go climbing in Wyoming, or if I go climbing in Kentucky, or if I go climbing in Georgia, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
But for you to go climbing, it's a whole different thing. Your brain has to be occupied in an entirely different way. So maybe climbing will be tough to be a recharge for you until you can, you know, build a different circumstance or this community catches up.
That's super true. Yeah.
Mario, being in Texas, how is that for you? You were just spending your holiday in a very white town in Southwest Texas.
Sundown County, Texas.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I want to.
You're stretching yourself into this area.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I'm definitely moving in. I am not the model minority, but I'm trying to be. But you know, I want to kind of go back to something Devin said, you know, and kind of answer a question for you in my perspective. And you asked, you know, like, how do you recharge? And like, how do you do this? And I think, you know, the big thing is you have to make the tools you want to use. And this might sound a little weird, but like, okay, so like you play video games and it shuts off your brain, but like you can play those games and shut off your brain, but at a certain point, like your brain is empty. And I think that is the time for you to either have like a list or something in front of you, or, but like you need to learn how to use the tools that you already are effective at, or create tools. And that's where like the whole whiteboard thing came with me, because I was having notebooks and paper everywhere, and I was like trying to keep up with this, and I was like, I just need all this on the wall. And then so it started with, the original thing is I just went to Home Depot and got one of those big giant like sheets of metal, and I just put it up on the wall, and I had magnets and pieces of paper everywhere. And at first, I would just slide the papers around, but those were the tools that I kind of created. And I think really what you need to do is, however, and like I said, I'm speaking for myself here, but if we as human beings, if it doesn't exist, if the tool didn't exist, we make it. We're pretty good at doing that. And I think that's something that's important, and I would encourage you to experiment that, because you're going to fuck up a lot. Like, it's going to fuck up a lot. And, you know, hearing you talk about the switchboard, it was very serendipitous to me, because I'm like, I've been there. Yeah, I've definitely done the switchboard thing. And it's like, I can relate to that very well. But like, one thing I guess I really want to say to you, that's a part of the process. That's like a very big part of the process. And everyone's probably process is a little different, but I think you really nailed it. It's like, you feel like you're doing this and this and this and this and this and this, and then you're going back and forth. But like, that's a part of like, you know, really boiling it down to what it needs to be. And then once you kind of get your things that are important to you, then you have to build tools or systems. Probably systems is a better way to say it, that helps support that. But like, you have to understand, like, those systems are going to fucking crash and burn a lot. They're going to crash and burn a whole lot. And I say that for me. And so that's like kind of that. And then I kind of totally forgot what the other question was.
Kris he was hinting at the fact that, you know, climbing feels like an escape for him, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way for someone of color.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty poignant thing to say.
Yeah. And I think the big thing, and I have to say that, like, I have to give the caveat that, like, I don't know if this is my Jamaican roots or my mom's very, like, you know, strong civil rights roots or however, but I have a big fuck you attitude towards anybody. Like, I pay my taxes, I don't go to jail, I'm a model member of society, and I'm keeping your slap happy white kids really excited about rock climbing. So I am, you know, I will go wherever I please, and I will rock climb wherever I damn well please, as long as I'm not breaking the law. Because I'm definitely not going to put myself in a situation where you can hold me down. Like, that's a no-no. But I am a different exception to that rule, because it doesn't really bother me until they're standing in my face, because at that moment, like, every human being is so different. Every person is so different. So I'm going to take the situation for what it is right in front of me. Like, some people are like, boy, you need to get off that wall. And some people are like, what the hell are you doing out here? And other people are just like, do you mind telling me what's going on? And it's like, each situation is so different. And I choose to take it at the moment that it is. But at the same time, I've also exist in enough white spaces consistently more often in my life where, like, I can very quickly decide to send, like, I need to be honest and straightforward with this person. I need to be very honest but vague, or I need to diffuse this situation with humor. And like, I can quickly do that in a moment. And then there have definitely been moments where it's just like, okay, like, this is going to turn into a gunfight. It's just time for me to leave, you know? And it's not like, and that's literal and figuratively, but, in my experience. But I think that's just for me. And so I sometimes I feel very uncomfortable answering that question in that state, because that's just my attitude for it. But playing devil's advocate, I think it's real hard, especially because, you know, as minorities, we are used to being in neighborhoods, not communities, neighborhoods where people are just like gathering, because a community and a neighborhood are two different things. Like, make no mistake. But like, we're used to like there's strength in numbers. And then when you stray out from the numbers, that you feel vulnerable. And I'm playing devil's advocate here. I understand that's true for white people going into black spaces. I understand that's true for anybody. The only difference, as Kris so elegantly put, like where you can stray, Kris, is far more vast, far more vast, where than minorities can stray. And hopefully it's changing. Hopefully it's different. I mean, the town that I was in was beautiful. Everybody was super heartwarming. Everybody was super lovely. I had an amazing time. I had a great time at 4th of July, and they were just all around beautiful people. And I'm psyched on it. But
that's good to hear.
But on the reals, though, like I totally get it. I completely understand why they're like, I'm not going here. I'm not even going to begin to put myself in this situation because someone else gets so much anxiety just figuring out how to navigate because, they're operating from a place of fear. They're like, okay, so if this situation happens, how am I going to get it? Okay, I got that. Now this situation, now this situation, now this situation. And when you have to live your life and operate from a place of fear, your spirit is just rippled all the time. Yeah. And it's just like there's never any time that you have this clear mountain, pristine glass lake. It's always waves, and that's hard to handle. And I think once again, maybe hustling would help y'all. But I think if you're used to working and if you're used to causing a couple splashes every once in a while, I don't think it would be that bad. But everyone is different, and I firmly believe my method does not work for everyone. I think there are people who are that. Like the only person I've ever heard close who kind of operates the same way is Brandon, Mr. Big Fingers. Like him and I have had like a lot of like the same, like we've talked briefly, but like have lots of the same experience. But we both kind of have the attitude like I'm going to be here because I'm allowed to be here. Like I'm not going to shy away from it. But granted, we're both not going to put ourselves in a situation that like like it's going to be detrimental, but I guess that's kind of my thought of it, kind of playing both sides of the coin.
I have a question for both of you. Devin, do you ever feel like video games take your mind off of it all? They allow you to like be in a totally different place. Do you ever feel guilty for taking that time away from the work, the other things that you do?
100% of the time.
I wondered. Mario, do you ever feel guilty?
No fucking way.
I was like, I'd probably negative for Mario. He's crazy, dude. Like, this is why I like being around him, because he and I are so similar, and yet, like, in so many ways, he's the opposite of what I am, and I don't understand it. Like even just what he said about being in the outdoors, like just the like, well, I pay my taxes. I'm going to be here. Like, I just wish I could do that. And I wish that I could, like, turn off and not feel bad about it. I mean, I think sometimes if I don't think about it, then I don't feel bad. Like, I played video games earlier today, and I didn't feel bad about it, but it's because I didn't think about it. Like, if I had thought about, oh, well, you said you were going to put out another episode of ACP on the 4th, you didn't do it. Like, if I had thought about that, I probably would feel bad, but I didn't think about it today. I mean, I'm just so fascinated by Mario's mindset.
Well, I think
it's so different than mine.
I think also this kind of goes back to the age-old saying, everything in life is fine and dandy until you get punched in the face. And I've been punched in the face multiple times in my life. And I think at that point, it's funny, I was literally talking to the other coaches today, and all of them thought I was fucking crazy for this. But I really, really want to do this. And I know any of the kids that I coach listening to this, you're going to hate me for this. But I really want to take my entire climbing team, or like the kids that are actually competitive, that I actually would do it. I want to take them to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym and let them spar with other kids.
Yeah.
Because
I love this idea.
There is nothing in the world like trying to get someone off of you whose whole intention is to not let you move. And two things are going to happen. They're going to learn how to fight, or they're just going to lay there and just be limp and like just let the world kill me, you know. And those are the people who always like, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? I'd just let myself be eaten. And I'm like, damn, I just put two in the head. I don't want to feel that part, but it's interesting to me. It really is interesting to me, and I don't know, man. I think you just have to like really kind of just try it. And I think once you start trying that Kool-Aid, you'll like it more often than you think.
Yeah. You know, something you kind of brought up that or made me think of is I've realized this about myself. I have that reflex in crisis situations. So like when something is actually really, really bad, my anxiety goes away and I can turn into, so like zombie apocalypse, I know I would be fine. Like I'm a teddy bear now, but if it was like zombies were knocking down the door, I'm here for it. Like I'm going to survive. I'm going to do what I have to do. But in normal everyday situations, that's when I'm like incredibly anxious and like uncertain. But when things are like super serious, that's when I can like turn it on. And I guess like I was about to make an anime reference. You guys would probably make me feel like
somebody listening will.
Okay, well it's like in My Hero Academia where the main character gets his power, but he doesn't know how to like mitigate it yet. So he's like every time he like swings his arm to punch someone, he like blows up everything, but he also breaks his arm. Like I feel like that's kind of where I am, where it's like I don't know how to like mitigate like being able to turn my brain off and just like go unless it's like a severe situation.
You know what might be important. Something I've noticed about climbing training over the last 5 years is that it used to be that nobody recognized rest as part of training.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
And
powerful.
Nowadays, if I don't put, like if I'm talking about the aspects of training or the facets of training and I don't mention resting, somebody's going to come at me, you know? And I'm a huge proponent of it. But it's shifted. And that's because people have learned to value resting as part of what makes them a good climber.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe it will help turn your guilt off for playing video games if you can start to really see that as a valuable part of you being more productive.
Very true. That's very true.
That's how I see all the things that help me recharge are just as really valuable parts of this one big process that I'm embroiled in.
Yeah.
I think you need to break your arm a couple times.
You think I should be punching people and just break my arm over and over again?
No. I mean, you break it once or twice, you're gonna learn real quick, Playboy. I mean, you're gonna learn real fast. Like it don't take too. It's like, for example, you fall off a slab boulder a couple times, you learn very quickly how to dismount because your first time cheese steering, you don't ever do that again.
Yeah, you don't want to.
No. I remember the first time I hit a volume on the way down. Never again.
Ooh,
Never again.
Man. That's really funny. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, some things have to be learned certain ways. Sometimes you got to just go in the boxing ring. That's so funny. It's not exactly the same, but I used to work in like the service, like as a cook in a restaurant. And we always threw around this idea of once a month, if we all like got together and we had 2 pairs of boxing gloves and whoever had beef, you know, you just get in the ring, you slug it out and then it's over, you know, like that's kind of what, it's not the same, but it kind of reminds me of that of like, sometimes you need to just like, you just got to solve conflict in one way or the other. And I mean, I am not condoning this. I don't want people getting on my Instagram talking about, I think it should be okay to whoop your coworker's ass. But it's just the idea that like you go in, like you box it out and then you give each other a hug, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like you guys understand, I feel like.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no. I would like to ask a question to you guys. It's popped in my head earlier, but I want to kind of go back to like, the recharge topic, because both of you guys mentioned like different ways and different things, but like what would be your ideal dream way of recharging? Like resources, like everything is at your disposal, like, but if you could like imagine like what would be the most ideal way for you to recharge, whether it's like, you know, you live on Monster Ranch and you've got that fucking lake and everything else, or you're fucking like wherever. I mean, but like, what is that ideal way to recharge? Like, dream big.
I'm going to tell you what I was just recently planning and how my dream recharge still involves being productive.
Classic.
My daughter is like, she's crushing life. She's in a good job right now. Had a baby during COVID, and is figuring out how to be a single mom and deal with some traumas in her life, but is really doing an amazing job. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go on a vacation with her, and she had a few days that she's got off. So I made the decision without prompting from my wife or my daughter that we were going to go do a beach vacation, because it's not something I would ever do despite this palm tree and sailboat shirt I'm wearing right now. I would never choose to go on a beach vacation.
It doesn't seem like you.
So what I did when I realized my error in making this suggestion that I would never actually want to do was I was like, oh, I know where we'll go. We'll go to Fort Lauderdale, and then I can interview Abby while we're there. And get some work done. So I messaged Abby, and I was like, any chance you're around on these dates? And she's like, oh, I'm going climbing in Greenland, last minute opportunity. And I'm like, damn it, now I have to not work.
I gotta relax.
So for me, I mean, I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my daughter, hanging out with my granddaughter, and hanging out with my wife in a way that I'm not surrounded by my normal recharge vices that work for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment too. I think I said this earlier, but one of the ways I know that I recharge is intentional one-on-one time with people, like either one-on-one or small group, like 2 or 3 other people. I mean, honestly, like what I just did for the last couple of weeks is pretty damn close to what I would want to do to recharge. I mean, that was like a health pack right before the boss. Like, it was like to be able to, I mean, travel. 1, I love traveling. 2, spending quality time with a few close friends. That's important to me. 3, like just experiencing a new place, whether it's like through food or beer or like just culture. Like, I love experiencing new things. The only thing that I would add to what I just did is I would have like a Clark Kent phone booth that had all of my like creative stuff in it. And if I ever had an idea or like a beat that I wanted to drop or someone said something, I'd be like, hold on. And then I would go in the booth and like, so it's kind of like what Kris said. Like, I would want to be able to have the ability to be productive if something struck me, but I would not want to make myself do it. I wouldn't go with the intent of like what Kris said, like I'm going to go with the intent of interviewing someone, but I would just bring my podcast equipment. And then if someone interesting was there, like, wait, hold on, before you start talking, let me get my stuff.
But that on this trip you just took, if you had your phone booth with all your equipment, Annalisa would have taken it over because you saw her on your damn drum machine.
It was so great. Mario, oh my God. I brought my drum machine for this reason, right? Because I'm like, you never know, like I want to be able to be ready. And I think that Annalisa and Lana enjoyed it more than Kris.
Like, they bugged me. They're still bugging me. Like, when are we getting one of those drum machines?
The Power Company drum machine. I love it, dude. You could. It's so funny because like you don't need it, but that you don't get it because you need it. Like, I mean, Mario knows this. You don't get. I mean, you get gear that's useful to you, obviously, but you're not getting it for just utilitarian purposes. Like I didn't need the drum machine, but it made me way more productive, and making music is way more fun.
Yeah.
And like, it's cool. Like, it's cool for what just happened, right? Like, I brought it over your house, and
there was so much damn joy at that kitchen table.
Yeah.
Just pounding on that drum machine.
Which is what, dude, that's what music is supposed to be. Like, it's not supposed to, in my opinion anyway, like, any sort of creative endeavor should be, like, childlike wonder and just, like, pushing buttons, basically. You don't, like, when you get into at least this is how I think of it, when it starts to feel like work and like, you have to, like, take it up, like heart surgery or something, then you've kind of lost what, in my opinion, you've kind of lost what made it, like, that spark in the first place, you know? That's just how Is there something for either of you, since you just said that you thought was going to be work and arduous and something you didn't really want to do, but has turned into something that you look forward to and is a recharge thing for you? Ooh, I'll let you answer that first, Mario, because I don't know. That's a good question.
So
I have one if you need to think on it, but tell me if you got it.
No, it's funny listening to you guys' answers, really. So to answer your question, the question is there something that I've done that I thought was going to be super stressful work but it turned into a recharge? And I would have to say the one thing that is when I'm making videos. So I'm working on this series, this Kaya gym climber. Y'all are gonna know about this now, but like I'm working on a little thing for y'all. Working on a little thing that y'all can throw a brother some coin later for it. But this video series that I'm working on, it is a lot of work, because I have to turn myself from the run and gun director style, the run and gun shooting style that I'm really used to. And I have to be more of like a director, what I am for my clients. So when I'm producing like just commercial contract work around here for people's social media or whatever, or branding stuff for businesses, I have to become a director. And I've really had to do that for myself in producing this content. But in producing this content, I've actually inadvertently started having very amazing conversations with people, even when the content that I'm creating is in a negative light to something that they hold dear. The conversations have still been in a very impactful and positive way. And I know that I'm being like vague, but I'm not also trying to like throw out the beans.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
But I think that's like, for me, like those interactions are what recharges me, because like human connection, in my opinion, intimacy is really what charges, like I think charges most people to a certain extent, whether it's intimacy with yourself or intimacy with other people. But I think that's what charges. And it's funny, I was listening to you guys answering this question, and both y'all's answers, I was like, God damn, that's so much work. Like, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, and if I ask myself the question, I would literally want like a little, not the full Zoom H6. We ain't gonna take that thing. I want like the little handheld recorder, just so I can, or I use my phone, but I literally want a notepad. I want an audio recorder so I can capture my own notes, and then that's it. Like, I don't want anything else. And then my dream setup would be to be in a place that is like Shangri-La. And I want to be able to go to Shangri-La and then go to, go to Mordorf. I want to be able to go back and forth between those two places, like sheer chaos.
All while floating in a salt bath?
Absolutely. The salt bath river is what takes, it's like a lazy river.
It's like the Nile,
Oh, damn.
With a little floaty.
Yeah.
You got a little floaty with your notepad.
Yeah, but
God.
I mean, think about it. Like only in absence, only in true absence and true emptiness, in my opinion, and true absence of all other things, do you have the ability to gain what you really, really want. And maybe other people need ideas and things like that, but it's really important to me to be able to go somewhere beautiful and then go somewhere what I would perceive stressful in the hustle and the grind, and just like really take advantage of like the difference between the two. And then I want to just turn on a microphone and just say my thoughts out loud. So they're on my own personal notes. And then I also want to be able to like draw pictures, jot down ideas, things like that. And then once again, close the book and come back to it. Because I guess like I always run into the problem of like what I perceive in the moment. It's like, oh, this is great. And then I come back to it later. I'm like, this is fucking dumb. Or I'm like, oh, I look at this in an entirely new light because I was just caught in the heat of the moment. And I think that, I don't know, I think we as producers, content creators, I think we definitely operate really well in that heat of the moment. And I'm just very, I always want to know, like, what would you do with your ideas and your thoughts if you just like took the best notes in the world, walked away from them to the point where you forget them, come back, and then be reignited with them? Like, what else would arrive? And I think that's something that's like, and that's for me. And this is like my creative process, because when I like, it's like the best way I know it's like, it's seeing, like, imagine a relationship you had with someone that ended, but it was like a good thing. It wasn't bad. Like, there's no animosity, but you see that person again and you see them with someone else and they have kids. It brings you joy to know that they're like moved on. But the last image you had in your mind with them is them with you. So like this, you basically have a Polaroid in your brain of what once was. And then now you get to see what is now. And it's like, it's really joyful. And I think like but it's also very scary. And I think just it's really hard for that to be done. And I think that's like, I don't know, I just encourage people to do that. I encourage people to like really kind of separate yourself from it, because when you come back to it, it's like, it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I was originally supposed to answer, but I went off some real diatribe.
That was classic Mario.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're here for.
I think Kris asked, what things did you think were not going to be a source of like energy, but turned out to be?
Yeah. It would definitely be the videos then. It would definitely be the videos. And then, I'd have to say it'd be the videos. And then when I first started youth coaching, I thought it was just a means to the end. I can make some money. But then now, like, those little turds recharge me every day. Like today, I won't give out the names, obviously, because I can't, because they're minors. But one of the kids I walked up to, I was like, what's wrong with you today? I was like, you're just like in this poop mood. I mean, like, you're a turd normally, but like today, like, you're like extra turdy. Like normally you like a little turd with like a little sunflower growing out of it. So there's like some decency to you, but like today, like you're full like sloppy turd, sloppy like splat. And he's like giggling and laughing, and he's like, I'm not a turd. I'm like, really? And I was like, but then in the midst of the conversation, he starts talking to me, and he was like, well, I'm going into a new grade. These things start going, and then we start talking, and it's like, it's really magical to me, because I'm like, man, like, you know how you feel, and you have the emotional intelligence to understand how you feel, but you don't know how to articulate it even to yourself. And it like really recharges me, because I'm like, man, I want to tell you the answer, but like, how can I give you breadcrumbs to like let you figure it out? And then the process by which throwing out these little breadcrumbs out there it's so interesting just to get their response. And it's like, it takes me all in these wild ass places where I'm just like, okay, I'm like, the infinite wisdom of children just blow me away. And at that moment, like, even though I'm trying to lead him somewhere, all I can really do is receive what he is saying. Like, I can't, like I'm just acknowledging the state that he's in, and I have to receive the energy that he gives me. And whatever he gives me is whatever he gives me. Like, at the end of the day, like, whether it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't. We'll try again next practice. Hopefully he's not in a turdy mood. But I think those moments, like, really, really recharge me, because I just, when I honestly started coaching, I just never really thought that this was a thing. Like, it's not even a thing. Like, I didn't know it exists. Like, I didn't know that, like, this level of growth could happen working with children. Because if you think about, like, working at camps or, like, working with kids, but it's one thing when you're, like, trying to help make good human beings. The process takes you all over the place. And so I think that's probably the most important thing that probably recharges me outside of like my own practices, because like I can't go into practice with some preconceived notion. The only preconceived notion I have is what I plan on doing for practice that day. But everything else is just, that energy is just given to me, and I just have to accept it for what it is.
Yeah. That's really cool, man. I think you articulated pretty much the exact same way I felt about coaching when I started. A lot of like, I wouldn't have gone to teaching or coaching had it not been for other people's encouragement. I thought I was going to be terrible at it. I thought it sounded really scary, and I didn't really think I would get anything out of it in the sense of like energy back. But yeah, I mean, you could just copy and paste what you said. Like, I mean, honestly, like and I still like, it's not a regret, but I always am sad that I had to stop coaching. I had to stop for myself because I could see that I wasn't able to give the kids 100%. And this may be a problem that I have, but I just like cared so much about them and their development that I felt like if I couldn't give them 100% of my attention when I was with them, that it wasn't right for me to be a coach. And at that time I was about to be the like head climbing instructor of the gym. I was trying to work on events. I was doing the social media for the gym. I was taking pictures. Like I was like, I cannot coach these kids. I mean, I could have, but it would have been like 50% or, maybe 75 on a good day. And I just didn't, that was the one thing that I was like, okay, like for the sake of the kids, like I shouldn't coach them. But I always loved it. And yeah, I would say being a teacher and like knowing that you're impacting the kid, and exactly what you just said, I think that any coach or instructor should have written that down of like, you're not trying to tell them what to do. You just have to be there for their process. And any good instructor is not going to give you answers, like, at least I don't think so. I think a good instructor,
I think you're spot on.
Yeah. So like that is like gold right there. What you just said. I think that's spot on. And yeah, I definitely, so I can't say coaching because it's not something I do now. I can say one thing, this has nothing to do with rock climbing or anything, but one thing that I do that some people are like, that sounds really hard, but I actually love it, is learning new languages. It is hard. Like, I don't want to say that it's not hard, but I get so much joy out of it. And like, I love like the gratification of being able to say something in a different language and know like, oh, there's someone across the country that if I said this to them, they would understand me, like I get so much like dopamine out of that like anytime I sit down to like read a grammar book or listen to an audio lesson or something like that, I love it. Like I do it literally every day. I probably spend I spend at least an hour a day on language. Probably
that's very cool.
Probably a little more on like weekends. It's so much fun. It's so much fun, I think, anyway.
That's something I wish I would have spent more time on when I was younger. I think it's amazing when I hear someone speaking multiple languages.
Yeah.
It's something I didn't put a lot of value in when I was younger, and I wish I would have.
Well, two things. Cool. Like, one, you didn't have to, sadly. Like, we don't, in America, we don't get that much exposure. And two, it's not valued here, which is really sad. Like, I think there were a couple of things that drew me to this. One was when I did my study abroad trip in college, that really was like, that was a huge turning point in my life, honestly. But part of the reason why is because we went so many places where people could speak like 2 or 3 languages and I couldn't understand any of them. And I felt so like, I'm not saying that people who only speak one language are like this, but I felt so small-minded, like I was like, I can only speak English, and you got like babies that are speaking 3 languages. And it's just normal. It's normal. And like the other thing that really struck me was that my minor, I have a degree and my minor is in Spanish, but I went through 10, 12 years of learning Spanish, but we didn't practice speaking it all that much. So like I know a whole bunch of like grammar and stuff like that, but I can't speak the language, which is like the dumbest shit ever, right? Like I can get a minor in Spanish. I got a minor in Spanish. I got good grades too, and I can't speak the language really. I mean, I'm better at it now, but it wasn't because of school. I wish that people, you know, like there's a lot of things I would change about this country, but one thing I wish people had to do when they were like a senior in high school, I wish that every like high school senior got like a plane ticket to like a different country, and they had to just go and just be in a place where no one speaks your language, no one knows shit about your culture or anything, and you've just gotta be. You gotta. They give you like some money and like make sure you don't die, but you got to go get your food. You got to go to the bathroom. You got to get everything you need on your own, and it will just teach people so much appreciation for other experiences. Kind of like the nicer version of Mario's boxing ring idea. Like the Brazilians who just they go get their ass whooped and then they go travel, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think in that order would actually be better. Do get your ass whooped, and travel. Then they'd be ready.
Yeah, it's like when you get a whooping and your mom's like, "You hungry?"
Yeah.
I've never understood that. Has that ever happened to you? Like, it's like, no, I'm not hungry. I'm still over here trying to process this situation, looking out the window.
Oh, man.
No, I definitely was like,
that was my whole childhood.
Right away.
You want some juice?
Nah, because my mom would definitely be like, "You ready to eat?" I'd be like, "Yeah," because she knows it's going to make me feel better. With you still crying and eating, and your food is salty with your own tears. That shit is wild.
Mario's still getting spanked, and he's like, "What's for dinner?"
Shit, my mom and my dad threatened to whip my ass. I joke around, but when they stand up, I sit down.
I'm
36 years old.
That's smart.
I'm 36 years old. 37 tomorrow, gentlemen.
Oh, really?
Happy birthday!
Happy early birthday.
37 tomorrow, and I'm still afraid of my parents whooping my ass.
Oh yeah,
that's a good choice.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I had a weird one that I really didn't expect, and I'm really just realizing in the last week or two that it actually is something I look forward to and is recharging for me in a lot of ways. And it's that. Number one, I'm not a fiction reader. I'm not good at reading fiction. I'm much better at reading nonfiction, and I've never been into it. My wife, on the other hand, is really into it. Particularly Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman and these kind of fantasy stories. And years ago, I had read The Graveyard Book, Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book, out loud to her at bedtime, and I thought it was a great book, but then I went right back to my I don't read fiction ways, you know. And then just a few months ago, she had a Terry Pratchett book, and she's like, "Read it to me." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? No way. I got too much to do. This is going to take a bunch of my time. No way." And she just kept doing it, and I'm like, "Fine, let me read it." And I read it out loud to her, and then I'm like, "What's the next book?" And then we read the next book, and then I'm like, "Let's order the next book. What are the next books? You know, we got to read the rest of these. I need to know what happens to Captain Vimes, you know." And now it's become this bedtime ritual. I mean, I did it while you guys were here. You know, Annalisa was telling Bree, "Kris is going to be reading to me. Sorry if that keeps you up." You know. And so we lay down, and I read to her till she falls asleep. I get mad because I keep reading and she falls asleep, and then I have to read it all again the next night. But there are a lot of nights where she falls asleep, and I'm like, I don't want to stop reading. I need to know what happens, you know. And now it's starting to feel like this recharge for me, because it's totally separate from all the things I'm doing otherwise. I can place a lot of value on it like I can logically place value on it, which is the way I do things.
Yeah.
I like logic, and my logic is in that I sleep better afterward, which means the next day I'm more productive. The next day I climb better if I'm going climbing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm less of a dick if I've slept, you know. Mm-hmm. So I can place that logic on it, and it's become this valuable part of it. Don't tell her I said this, but that's the way it is.
Yeah. That's so cool. Like I mean, I love that idea. If I were ever to be married, that would be something that I would want to do. Mm-hmm. Like, just because that's just like it. I could see what you're saying. And I also could see what you're saying about having a nighttime ritual, because that is one thing that I've learned this year is very important to me, is having some kind of nighttime ritual. It's changed over the last few months. It used to be I would spend an hour drawing before bed. So I would always, like, you know, when I felt like I was ready to go to bed, I would just like turn off all my devices and I would sit down at this very table and I would just sketch. Lately it's become, I make myself some tea and I watch like an hour and a half of anime, and which is why when I like, I'm coming up with anime references now, but it's like it's a bookend, you know, like there's a consistency there of like, I know that at roughly at this time, this is what's going to happen. And it's like just the right amount of consistency for me. 'Cause I don't like when like my whole day is consistent. You know, like that's one of my struggles is when things are the same for too long, I start to get anxious. But that's like just enough consistency to have like this is what I do this is what I do when I first wake up. Like when I first wake up is when I do my language studies, and when I go to bed is when I am either watching anime or I'm drawing it. One of those two.
Yeah, that's cool. You know what? You both actually reminded me of something that I hadn't thought about as a thing that recharges me, but Annalisa pointed it out while you were here, Devin. Mm-hmm. And that's that, like, I love going and hunting for new boulders. I realized last winter that it was taking up a lot of my time, and I'm like, you know, maybe I should spend less time doing this. Mm-hmm. But then recently I've realized that I don't really give a shit if I find boulders for me.
Yeah.
I love taking other people to these boulders that I've found, scrubbing holds, figuring out sequences with them. I don't care if I climb it or not. I can walk away and never even climb on the boulder, but I get so much joy out of creating something that, you know, was laying there before but dormant, you know, waking this thing up. And I love it. It was so much fun with you and Bree. Yeah. You know, I do it with Lana and Annalisa all the time. Just a ton of fun for me. So
that's really cool.
That's a big one for me too.
That's super rad. It reminds me a little bit of route setting, where you that's how I get energy from route setting to, I don't know, like what Mario would say this, but I know for me, it's always so much more fun when I'm setting in service of something, you know, like I think any good route setter is like a service-minded person, and it's so much better to set something thinking about somebody, of like, oh, you will love this route, or even the opposite of like, I know you're going to hate this route, but I really want you to try it, like knowing that, like, you don't like pockets, like I get it. Here you go, though. I mean, it's kind of hard not to climb something that someone made for you, even if you're not necessarily going to like it. But it's just it's so cool to like give somebody something, or to like give them, not even like give them a gift necessarily, but give them an experience. Like give them, like what you just said, like you're not giving them the boulder, you're just giving them that process, and you're there with them. It's the same thing for route setting. Only difference is that like I'm just putting plastic on the wall and being like, here it is. I totally get that.
Mario's process is, I set this boulder for you. I'm going to lay here in my salt bath while you get punched in the face by it.
He's got
you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong.
I love it.
I've definitely gotten.
I need to try this salt bath.
I've heard about it. I've heard about it, and I've wanted to try it for a while. I wonder what that would be like.
Sensory deprivation tank.
Deprivation.
Yeah, that's it.
Speaking of Mario relaxing, was that just a giant bag of Hawaiian rolls from 4th of July?
It was. It was.
I mean, I was going to do my nightly ritual of sardines and the rolls, but then I realized it get all messy. I was like, we're just going to live that roll life. I mean, you act like you buy fried food. Do you buy the biscuit or the roll? You always choose the roll because that biscuit is so dry, you can't drink enough water. There's not enough water in the Mississippi to help.
You're talking about like Popeye's biscuits. That's what that makes me think.
Man, those things are sacrilegious. I don't do them.
You don't do?
Come on now.
I'm weird, I guess. I love them, but I also understand that they're like medieval torture devices. But I still love them.
I mean, it's like
Popeye's biscuits, no water.
If you eat a Popeye's biscuit, it reminds me of that scene from The Mummy where he blows out enough sand and he fills the entire room, and the room becomes the Sahara Desert.
You gotta stop.
Like, why bother to do that to yourself? But, it's funny, Kris, you're definitely spot on about the boulders because, like, I've definitely been dumped many a time. Well, not many a time, but I've definitely had a girl break up with me before because I was like, when I was rat setting a lot. I was like, I set you this boulder. And she's like, why don't you ever set something that I like? And I'm like, well, you will like this. And she's like, but you don't ever set something that's, like, super fun and flowy for me. And I'm like, and I looked at her and I remember saying, like, why am I going to set something that you're good at? Why I'm always going to set something that targets your weakness so you can become a badass. And she's like, well, just throwing a nugget would be nice every once in a while. I was like, that's what your family's for, not me. But
no soft spot for you here.
No.
Oh God, that is.
I mean,
the Hawaiian rolls.
Yeah, I mean that's
Hawaiian. That's Popeye's biscuits on this wall. That's all you get. No water, neither. Nothing.
Oh yeah.
Y'all are a trip.
Yeah, but man, be careful of them biscuits, man. They get you.
They do. I haven't been eating them lately. I've taken myself a little hiatus. Trying to get back into some sort of shape. I'm in a shape right now. It's not the shape that I was before. Trying to get into that one. Oh man, you guys are hilarious.
Yeah, well, don't stick to my diet of Hawaiian rolls then. You want to avoid that. But the sardines will get you
big ass bag of Hawaiian rolls.
You ate the whole thing, didn't you?
Nah, man. I ate a row.
I wish y'all could see how he looked when I asked that question.
Ate a row.
It's like, mind you, it is the party pack. It's the 24 roll pack.
So you ate a sleeve.
Basically. See, hold up. We're going to show y'all here. Is this going viral? Is this video going live at some point in time?
No video recording right now.
The video makes this better.
See, only 2 rows are gone. And the other row was eating.
4, listener.
Yeah, and the other row, and like no one will shame me for what I'm about to say, but I ate the row while I was driving, and I had like a 6-hour drive.
Oh, I can't blame you for that at all.
Nah.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, but now eating this right as podcast happens, that might be a little bit off, a little sideways.
Oh,
but
man.
We'll be all right.
It's a quiet food. It's not like you were eating like hot Cheetos or something. Yeah, like just.
I mean, I do have chips and salsa, but I thought that would be a little rude.
Maybe.
That's probably. Oh, here's a question for you. What is my guilty thing that I do while I'm recording podcasts remotely, especially if people can't see me? Like, I will record the podcast, but I have the mouse set up and I keep it in one little spot. So all I have to do is tap it and turn mute on. But I've definitely been known to eat a full dinner, drink whiskey, and have a full meal while the podcast is going on and someone can't see me on the other end. And I'm just crazy. That's like my guilty thing that I do every once in a while. I think one person caught me one time. They're like, "Are you eating?" And I'm like, "No."
No.
This is just fueling while I hustle.
Yeah.
But have you guys ever done any? Have you guys ever had a moment where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this and doing an episode at the same time, or is that just not a thing?
I'm trying to think.
I don't know.
There will come a day.
I don't know. Most of mine are in person, so it's
hard to get away with anything.
I'm not going to be in my underwear eating Hawaiian rolls.
Fair enough. For all you listeners, I'm wearing a shirt and eating Hawaiian rolls. So correct. Like Kris has a Hawaiian shirt on.
Sure,
so I think
rewrite the narrative. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the closest, I'm usually pretty I actually try to be pretty clean when I do my podcast. I think the quote unquote worst thing I've ever done is maybe I will sketch while I'm talking to someone, or I will definitely have a drink, but I'm not if someone's like, "Are you drinking?" I'll be like, "Yeah." Are you? Aren't you?
Yeah, booze is definitely that, but I definitely ate burger and fries one day talking to someone.
He's over here sauteing and shit. Yeah, no, I'm listening.
Bluetooth headphones, baby.
Oh my God, yeah. Maybe because I'm newer to this, but I'm so okay, turn the clock off so there's no background noise. Clear my desk, get the pop filter right. I'm so not rigid, but I'm just I want it to be high fidelity. I'm still in that I'm worried about it sounding good phase. I'm not in the relaxed phase yet. Not to say that I don't enjoy the conversations, but you get what I'm saying, right?
You want a good production value, and I think I definitely have been in that realm before, and I think, Kris kind of mentioned this to me before. Once you kind of get your systems down, it's easy to reproduce this production value that you're getting.
Yeah.
It's just kind of finding that system is the hard part.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think that speaks to kind of the whole initial topic here, and Devin feeling like we're giving advice.
Yeah.
Mario and I have both been doing this a little longer, and your personality is that you want to get it right, and the people listening appreciate that because you do
That's fair.
An amazing job at the things you're doing, and you're going to put extra into that, and that's going to take more stress. And like Mario has said multiple times, maybe hustling is a good thing for you right now because you're figuring all these things out in real time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you will get to relax more down the road, and you're learning the things that help you recharge. You've got the video games, you've got the language learning, you're some of these things and can put them into practice as your systems get better, as you figure all these hustles out and how to make them work for you.
That's true. Well, and what else I will say that I have learned for sure is I've had to learn how to turn it off. I didn't have to do that. It took me being truly, truly overloaded and burning out to learn how to turn things off, if that makes sense. And it's sad. I had to learn that the hard way. There was because I've always been able to, this is my weakness, I guess, is I've always been able to not skate by, but my level of productivity is, I would say, higher than most people's. So what I think is super hardcore is way above what someone else would say. And so I needed to be truly, truly overwhelmed and just crash and burn and be brought back to the basics to know how to not always be going, So I've definitely learned. I think there was even a conversation a month ago where Mario was like, I want you to go park your car and just stare at the highway and watch the cars go by. And I did do that. And I did that, and it was it was kind of the same effect of when I play a video game, where I was just I was observing reality, but I wasn't participating in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that exercise.
It is. It's good, and it's a reflex, not reflex, but a mechanism that I've learned is I don't have to necessarily stare at a car to do that anymore. I can okay, be present, but don't like think. Like let everything pass you by, sort of, like if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's meditating. That's what it is.
It
honestly.
really is.
Yeah. I think it's also, like we're all in this capitalist society, this hustle culture. We're all adults. We're all trying to make it, whatever it means, and then we're all thrown this curveball of the pandemic where we're not hanging out with friends as much, these like the easy recharges that we take for granted a lot of the time, So a recharge for me is this, the getting to talk to the two of you the way we have the last few months and getting to hang out with you the way that we have. And I look forward to more of that.
Yeah, I do too. I think you actually just showed me that not being able to see my friends had a much more profound impact on me than I realized, because I think I've said it probably 3 times in this conversation that one-on-one time, like very high quality time with a close few friends, is one of my primary ways of recharging. So not being able to do that has been very difficult. And that a few weeks ago when Bree and I traveled out to you and then to Utah, like that is effectively what we did. Like, like there were some times where there were like social, like you had people over for dinner, but for the most part, like we were spending really, really good time with like a small group of people. And even those dinners, Devin,
that's like true. I don't invite willy-nilly.
No,
I'm not like it was very intentional. Like, I want this group of people here because I know what this group of people brings to the table, and I want that at the table.
Yeah, very true.
That's how I operate all the time now, is trying to be really intentional about my community because it was very apparent during the pandemic that, I need good people around me, and I don't have time for the people who don't bring something important to the table.
Yep. That's and make no mistake, like the guest list was I was like, am I allowed to come to this dinner? Like, look at all these people that are...
You were the guest of honor at the dinner. What are you talking about?
You're playing. Like, oh man, yeah, that was it. I really appreciate that, because that's also something I've had to learn. Is I'm a very social person. And one of my positives and negatives is that I give 100% to everything, but that includes people. Like, and when I have a lot of friends, I've been giving the same amount of energy to everybody, 100%. And I've learned that is not only like impractical, but it's not sustainable. And it's hard, because I do really, if I make a connection with someone, like I really care about everyone so immensely. And I can't give the same level of energy to everybody. I have to pick and choose who I'm going to invite over for dinner or like go have a drink with, just like I have to choose who's going to be on the American Climbing Project podcast. I can't have everybody on it. And it's really hard for me to accept that, because in my mind, I'm like, well, inviting some people means not inviting others, or connecting with some means negating or disregarding others. But it's just like, you kind of have to. I guess I'm just trying to learn how to make that okay in my head. But it is something I've learned is necessary. I have to like limit my energy that I just dole out,
Yep. How do you limit your energy, Mario? Because you bring a lot of it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've never been asked that before. I know I do. I would probably have to say is I believe in being very tactical about my approach to anything. So like when I am putting energy into a project, and this kind of goes back to the process with the whole moon board or anything like that. like I have to plan like an exit strategy. And when I start really butting up against that, like I start getting close to that, like, and this is honestly probably where I crash and burn the most. Like, I get so emotionally invested in it, and I'm like, you know, I treat it like a route. Like you know, you guys haven't rock climbed with me out. Well, Kris, you watched my failed attempt at bouldering outside, but you know, like rope is where I shine. But like, I am one of those people. Like, I climb the route into submission. Like, I'm relentless, and I just like, I'm there. And I think the problem, I have a hard time with this because I literally have to create like an exit strategy or kind of like a marker, and to know that like, okay, this is where I can't put any more effort or energy into it. But I'm always that person. It's like, you know something, everything I want in life is just outside of my comfort zone. One more move.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to figure out this thing, you know. My biggest warning signal with climbing is like, oh, I feel a little twingy. My elbow feels a little weird. My finger, like, we're done. Yeah. And the problem is like, when you get to that point, in certain situations, it's already too late because now, like, you can't just like back off and just take, I have a half rest day. It's like you have to like actually legitimately rest and take time off. And sometimes I get to that point with projects or things that I'm working on where I'm like, oh, okay, I get to this point. But then like by the time the project, I've gotten to that point, I'm either so far into it that like, especially if it's revolves someone else, I can't back out of it because someone else is dependent on me. So then I'm like, well, God dang. So I got to grudge through, or I'm at a point where like, it is really, really hard for me to let go. And I know this sounds super, super like dramatic with like, you know, a capital D here, but like I've gone so far as to the point where like I rip the project out of my page book and I go out to the barbecue grill and I just burn it. And I'm like, it's gone. It's gone into the universe. Like I gotta let it go. And that, you know, it's that act of sacrifice of the I did and fully letting it go sometimes is the only thing that I feel that it like legitimately frees me of something, because it is hard for me to gauge my energy towards it. Because once again, like, you know, when I decide I want to send a route, there's hell and high water get in my way, I'm going to do it. Like, there's nothing that's getting in my way. Like if I've decided to send this route, it might take me a year or two, but like I've never not sent a route that I've like put my mind to. It's not been a thing. Now, it might take me a while, and you know, it's only probably been in the last year that I've actually legitimately considered like, maybe I just need to put this route down. Like maybe I just need to like walk away from it. And legitimately, I have a really hard time doing it. Like it's like, it is like so much to the point where like it makes me nauseous sometimes. Like it like
all that investment.
Yeah, it's like it affects me. And so when we talk about like putting energy into a project or energy into something, like it's the same thing. Like I have a hard time finding that line. And so I have to give myself clear warning signs or clear exit strategies.
That's really interesting. Nate and I have a board meeting scheduled tomorrow to talk about strategic quitting. So really interesting that you brought that up.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
You know, something else, Mario, I have to go here pretty soon, but I do want to say this. Something else that just popped into my head about your energy and why it's important to keep people around you in an intentional way is that, you know, there are some people that I'll have around me who I feel like I need to be entertaining them, or I need to be taking care of things, or I need to be wearing a certain hat or put on a certain persona around those people, you know, and I don't necessarily want those people around anymore. But when you and I were in Salt Lake just recently, there was a very clear Like, we could go to breakfast and it could just be easy chat. Nobody's in a rush. We hang out, eat as much as we want, drink as much tea and coffee as we want. You're constantly bugging the waitress for more honey or whatever. And then when we go to work, we work. We're on. Mm-hmm. And then when we're back to the hotel room, we're off again. You know, that's a relatively rare thing, actually, that you don't have to put on an air around people, I think. And I think it's important to keep people around who you don't have to put that air on.
Agreed.
100.
Agreed. Yeah.
And like, Devin, when you were at my house just recently, one of the things I appreciated seeing the most was like when we're getting ready for dinner or whatever, or we just came back from climbing and you're just laying on the couch. And I was like, fucking perfect. Like, that's exactly what you should be doing. If you want downtime, take the downtime. Like, don't feel like you have to be up doing anything.
Yeah.
You know?
That's really, I'm glad you interpreted it that way. I mean, if anything, I suppose, like, to your point, I don't think that I would feel comfortable doing that with most people, because I'm like, I shouldn't be like lazing around. But I'm like, it's like, I don't want to say I don't care, because it makes it seem like I don't care. But you get what I'm saying. Like, the fact that I don't care is a good thing, because I know that, like, if I need to, like, vibe out for a second because I'm tired, or, like, you know, or I just need to, like, chill, like, it's okay. I don't feel pressure to, like, come up with something to do or be on. Yeah. So I 100% agree with what you said. Like, it's really hard to find people that do that for you. In like situations that feel that way, but it's become all the more clear after spending some time in that sort of situation that I need more of that. Like, I don't, like I said, I don't do that at everybody's house. It was just, you actually kind of just affirmed that for me, that I was like really in my element, you know? Because I was around really dope people that I felt were their own autonomous, like, multifaceted interesting human beings, and I didn't have to be somebody, you know. I don't know. That's really interesting. What a way to put that. That I can just laze about on your couch. And that is a sign of solid, like, I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah.
Yeah, it just looked like you had made yourself at home.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. And it's not like we hang out every day.
No.
You know?
No.
That was like the fourth time we'd ever been around each other physically. So
that's so interesting, isn't it? It's kind of like what we talked about with Bree and I. We're like, I think Bree and I probably have not seen each other in person 5 times yet, and she's my best friend. Like, I pretty easily can say that. And but it doesn't matter. Like, it's not. But that's what I mean when I say quality time. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I've learned, especially because I don't have a whole lot of time. You two would agree with this, right? You don't have you can't just spend. You don't get to spend entire weeks with your friends, or you can't hang out with your friends every single day. So when you're with them, you've really got to be with them and be present. So that's how I look at it. I just look at it as like the 4 times that we've interacted have been so profound that, like, it eclipses other people. I mean, think about it, dude. Like, the first time that we talked, like, was at Hoosier Heights, and we talked for like ever. Second time,
I was just there doing a shoe demo, I think.
Yeah, that, and I talked to you about climbing and music and all this stuff. Second time was when we recorded the podcast. You know, like, all of these things are super, like, concentrated interactions, which is what I love. I love intense, concentrated, like, sporadic friendships, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's, you know, very similar to the experience with Mario.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been around each other a handful of times, but they're always these like big bang.
Yeah, they've always been these
like
big situations.
It's like giant, like Iron Man core things that just like have so much energy in them. And
there's downtime in all of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Either just sitting and drinking and chatting, or sitting around eating or whatever. There's downtime, there's recharge time, there's let's just be friends time.
Yeah,
built into these big bang moments. So
100%.
I know we got to go here, but I just like just listening to you gentlemen talk about this. Kris, I've talked to both of you too about this, and I've been like, I've been reading a ton of books, and I'm not quite ready to launch it yet because this is going to be the first like solo talking series, and I would definitely like to bring you guys in at some point on top of it. But talking about masculinity and climbing and masculinity and everything.
Woo!
But like
big
this,
topics.
Yeah.
It's like if anybody listens to this, I really want you to take away like everything that we're saying. But like if you don't listen to anything of this and you're like, you're listening just to the sound of the drum, I want you to like hear the bromance in this situation because like this is really beautiful to me. Because like I don't know, I just feel like I was just thinking about it and like this is so romantic to me. But then it made me wonder, like Devin, I've heard you mention quality time a few times. Like, I wonder, like, what is you guys' love language? Like, mine is definitely physical touch, and I love doing acts of service for people. And it's like, I don't know, I just thought about this too, and I was like, I was thinking about, when we were in Salt Lake, I'm borrowing some of your equipment, borrowing mics. It's like an acts of service, and like that really spoke to me, even though it was a kind of like we're on the hustle, on the grind, and we're like, it's kind of an unspoken rule, but like, it just made me think about like this moment and then what we're talking about. And, we're talking about recharging, we're talking about things. And I just finished reading this book, and I'm reading it actually again for the third time because I really, there are some parts of this book that I need to unpack. And it's the book is called The Way of the Superior Man. And one of the big things it talks about is like, if you were thinking about something that is questionable, seek out your male friends and seek out these people and ask them. And if they, it gives it a very extreme example. It's like if you're thinking about having an affair, seek out your male friends, and if they will most likely, they'll tell you what they think, and they'll you either need to do it, or you need to just like get over it and just get it, like, and just decide that this is not going to happen and just move on with your life. But you don't need to be, and you don't need to be like wrapped up in this thought. And I think that like we're talking about recharging, and we're talking about like we're like filling the battery, not filling the battery, all this other stuff. And I think what I really am trying to say here is we've talked about everything else in the world that recharges us, but Kris, you really talked about like how this recharges you. And I think giving reverence to this is bromance. This is male relationships. This is relationships. And this is like honesty between us all, because I'm very sure all of y'all would slap me silly if I started talking some nonsense, and I would expect nothing less.
Well, we would know.
But I don't know. It was just really like, I was just thinking about this as all this is coming to an end, and it's just really beautiful. And it was gorgeous, and I want to say that. And I know that word is probably not associated with masculinity a lot, but it is gorgeous. Like, this is a very gorgeous, beautiful thing. And I don't know. This conversation has been so recharging. I really hope that people listening to this use this as an example or as a blueprint to have these conversations, men to men, women to women, men to women, whoever. But like, I really hope that like you understand that like we are recharged from this, and it's kind of something that you can do yourself too. And it was just real magical, because like this is going to sound so fucking stupid and so fucking cheesy, but I don't care because y'all are my bros. But like I was literally thinking, I was like, God damn, I'm going to sleep really good tonight. Like, I'm going to have like really good thoughts. I'm going to have really good dreams. I'm going to have really good energy going to bed. And like, and I'm just going to like be in this state of like, peace of going to bed. And it's like, the only way I can equate it is like going to bed with a loved one. Like you guys have just put me in a really good space because like you are people that I let into my life and my spirit. And I don't know. I thought it was very important to say. And it was just something that was like kind of just making me tear up a little bit. Maybe it's the Hawaiian rolls and the gin. I don't know. But
why'd you have to go and add that on the end of it? They didn't have to know.
Nah, dude. We're all ruthless honesty.
I mean,
I've never had that happen from Hawaiian rolls. But maybe it does.
Maybe it's the Hawaiian rolls. They get to you. They make you do things.
Have you ever had a Hawaiian roll burger?
Oh my God, yeah. Don't remind me right now. I'm not trying to.
This is why you started off talking about sliders, isn't it?
Yeah, he was probably looking at it. You know how I tell you, like when I freestyle, I look at stuff in the room. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, he was staring at those Hawaiian rolls.
I don't know. It's kind of like when you're in Hawaii. Let's just say Hawaii, and you gotta roll with your friends.
Oh God.
Oh man.
This is kind of a new thing for me, to be honest. Like, historically, all of my best friends have been women. I've just connected with women better.
Here, honestly.
And this is a pretty new experience. And it's more just about, for me, it's about being really intentional about having the people around who lift me up and who I feel good about lifting up. And in every aspect of my life. Like I'm not really that interested in partitioning my life off in 100 different ways anymore. I want the people who I talk to for work are also the people I talk to as friends and the people I love to be around. And, if I can have all that work together, if I can take all those little patch cords, that you're plugging around, Devin, and I can just have one one 10-prong patch cord that stays plugged in.
Yeah.
That's what I'm angling for here. I'm angling for that whole 24-pack of Hawaiian rolls.
Yeah, you don't want to just have to. You don't have to settle for one sleeve or just like you want to be able to eat the whole thing.
I like how you said that because that was like my dilemma in the store because I was like, I can buy the 8-pack. Or I could just go for the 24 and be done.
Yeah, why would you? Yeah.
And it was only like $3 more. So
it's exactly and that's even like in a silly way. Like that's another form of intentionality though. Like like when people are like they're gonna cheat on their diet or whatever, and they'll eat like one Oreo. I'm like, man, like I'm gonna eat the whole damn thing. Like if I'm gonna cheat, like it's not gonna. I want it to be to the point where like, okay, I don't want any more now. I'm not gonna have like 4 or whatever the serving size is. I'm gonna eat the whole damn thing, and I'll be done with it. So I respect that decision, and I also really appreciate you saying what you said because. Like Kris said, I have always historically been close friends with women, but it's only because I was under the impression that men in general were not sensitive. And I'm a very sensitive, emotional person. There's no getting around that. But this past year, I've been introduced to way more men who are emotionally intelligent, like you two. So, like, my views have changed on that, and I appreciate
listening to Mario and Donnell, have that conversation for me. I will never forget when that conversation wrapped up, and Betty, who was like against the wall in a little pile of blankets and pillows, stood up and was like. Looking at me with her eyes wide, and I was like, does anyone else recognize what just happened? And she's staring at me and she's like, that was beautiful. And I was like, I'm glad you saw that. And I will never forget thinking, all right, there's some shit I need to learn. I need to step my game up.
Yeah. That's still my favorite episode. By far.
I mean, I'm flattered because it's funny. It's like, if Devin was here right now, he would just like literally be like, this is like the regular when we see each other, because we can't help it. Like we physically, I mean, he even said it, like we just like, we physically cannot help ourselves, but not to be that passionate and not to be that intimate with each other because we don't know how to. And I think too, it was definitely birthed out of being the only two brothers in a space. It was I think that was a little bit of a catalyst. Like I'd be lying if I said that did not escalate the process. But it was like, even to this day, like when we cross paths or gently talk on the phone, or he's in town or I'm in town, for him, it's one of those things. It's like we just like there are people in my life, and he's definitely one of them. I don't know how to be any other way. It's just not possible.
Well, it's a beautiful thing for sure. So, you know, I appreciate you allowing me into a fraction of that space. And, you know, to answer a question that you asked and kind of rolled right through, I had never thought about what is the love language I, you know, need to be spoken to in. But I think at least part of that language is just being able to be yourself, no pretension, no guards up. You know, I want you to feel comfortable laying on the couch or eating a whole bag of Hawaiian rolls while we're hanging out, you know.
This podcast is brought to you by
That's what I want.
Hawaiian Rolls.
Sponsored by Hawaiian Rolls.
New sponsorship opportunity.
Oh, shit. I know. I mean, it's a little bit easier for me because I've thought about this a lot. I know my language is for sure two things: quality time and words of affirmation. Words are super important to me. So like, and I know like I've come across people that like are totally like, words don't mean anything. Not true for me. Words mean so much to me. So like, even having you two like say like you're doing a great job, like this is like, that means so much more to me than you giving me something or doing something for me. It's just interesting how that works for people. But yeah, for me, it's definitely like, I love words. Like I love being told that I'm, you know, worth it or whatever. But I also really quality time, like where, you know, someone is truly like with me and is like paying attention, like we're paying attention to each other. We're not like engaged in anything else. That is like liquid gold to me, for sure.
Before I jump off of here, Mario, what's yours?
My love language is definitely, so my love language that I like to receive. Well, okay.
You mentioned physical touch, but
receive is definitely physical touch. Give is acts of service.
Same.
The other one that I like to receive, and I've definitely been struggling with this, but I've never been much of a words of affirmation person. But I do think I do have to think honestly. It is a little bit of words of affirmation, and I've always been like, I'm never one to give that. Like that's not naturally something I give, but I do think it's something that I'm starting to enjoy receiving, because I've definitely been like really trying to dig deep. And so I think those are, because it's funny, like the ones you give and the ones you receive are not always the same. And I've been like really trying to figure that out. You should ask the missus what your love languages are, Kris.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely a service giver. Like that's how I speak in love language. I want to do things for you. For sure. 100%. That's the way I speak it. But, you know, I think there's a lot of value. I talked about this with Annalisa once. I think I talked a little to Genevieve about this. I think it's really important to know the love language people like to receive as well, so that you can speak a little bit of that, you know, instead of always just speaking the language that you best give. You can give them a little of what they want to receive.
100%. Yeah.
Podcast, Instagram challenge, men. What are your love languages that you like to receive and give? Will you post it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky because this podcast was both, right? For me, like it was quality time and words were said.
Yeah.
So I got my double fix for today. I'm going to have a nice cup of tea before bed. Like you said, Mario, I'm going to sleep well, you know. So, yeah, thank you, too, for this. Yeah. It's been very appreciated for me.
Yeah, thank you both. I love you both, and I appreciate.
And we love you.
Yeah, brother. I love both of you guys. Well,
almost
gentlemen,
as much.
Well,
almost as much as I love Hawaiian rolls. Almost.
Damn!
I couldn't leave. I couldn't shut it off without saying that. I'm sorry. I'm just playing. Okay, you too.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you can hear, I'm getting solidly roasted about these Hawaiian rolls. But you know something? No shame. Whole bag of Hawaiian rolls, all to myself. Act like y'all don't. Act like y'all don't like that sweetness. It's either that or potato bread, but I digress. I want to thank you guys so much for taking a moment to listen to a chat between Devin, Kris, and I. It's not often that all three of us get together, and it's really heartfelt and really warming, and I'm super happy that we could share our creative process and how we get into our brains and really just everything that happens with us in order for us to create this content for you guys. Make sure you guys support Devin. The American Climbing Podcast just dropped a brand new episode. This thing is fire. I love the content he's putting out. Maybe I'll get my stuff up to his level. Or maybe I'll just keep it straight to the streets like I like to be. I don't know. But I want to thank you guys so much. And the Power Company is a wealth of knowledge. If you guys are looking for climbing training, definitely check Kris out. I want to thank our sponsors for this episode, which is Gym Climber and Kaya. Both of these two companies offer amazing resources to make your climbing better. And honestly, if you're not taking advantage of every little bit of help that you can get, then I don't know what you're doing, because you're probably not suffering. So then you have to ask yourself, are you really sending at all?